Still a unified. Well, the next leader brother was still a unified Hasidus before it really branched out and became lots of different groups and subgroups. Was the Yid Kadosh, who was a very different kind of a figure. With this point, to realize all great revolutions, if they succeed, sometimes, ironically, they were trying to overthrow what they thought were the problems of the previous regime, and they usually inspire the young and the idealistic and the people who want to come in and shake up the establishment. You know, the old people get a little set in their ways, right? That's how life works, and that's a lot of the way these revolutions work, politically and otherwise. And this is otherwise. So the Hasidus said by the early 1800s had very much become a fixture of the landscape, had been very much part of the way the world became. And some said that some of the Hasidim fell into the complacency that they were trying to overthrow. And the Yid Kadosh was certainly such a figure. He loathed the concept of the magic trick rabbi. Something that we heard the Noam Elimelech encourage to spread Hasidus. He felt it was intellectually dishonest. He felt that there were certain people who, because of their charisma, became great Hasidic Rebbes, but not because they knew any Torah. You could see how that happens, and in fact, you probably know, it happens a lot today too. People who can raise money really effectively did not make them a gadol. Or, in our world of Sheker, somebody who has a lot of followers on YouTube, right? Big YouTube rabbis out there, are they gedolim? Often not. And he saw through a lot of the hypocrisies, and he felt there were too much of that, and so he wanted his own revolution within revolution. He actually died relatively. He was leader for a short period. He was replaced by another figure, Rav Simcha Bonam of Psichka. If this is just a lot of names for you, the names will probably take on dimension. He was a little bit more of an embracing figure who brought people in. And his Talmud, who then took over afterwards, was Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, who was, by all accounts, a world-class Talmid Chacham, who was very much cut from the same cloth of his grand Rebbe. He had learned by the Yid Kadosh and by Rav Simcha Bonam, but very much in the model of the Yid Kadosh, as he was called, the Holy Jew. He loathed pretentiousness. He did away with niceties. He said they were conducive to chanufa, to flattery, and to trying to manipulate people for your own gain. Koztker Rebbe, they used to say, was somebody who was piercingly direct, blunt, honest. He had no patience for fools. So that when he moved to Kotzk, as we just moved into Kotzk ourselves, this was a new Hasidus. And Hasidus was still somewhat uppity and revolutionary, and the place here was not open to it, and it was a mixed place of Jews and non-Jews, but they threw stones at him and his Hasidim, his students, as they entered Kotzk. And he smiled. He said he loved the spirit. He said these people have, at least they have opinions. They're not just rotting on their chairs, like so many people. Right? I don't know if you went through some of these quotations, right? But rather than Tchias HaMesim, I'd rather revive the living. So many of us are walking dead. Too many zombie movies, or too many movies.
Add that one to the list. Intentional. Yeah. Unintentional.
So he came and he moved here. He himself was a son of a Misnagdish family who became a chassid, like so many of his followers. Many of his followers, some of the big names you know, the Chidush Yarim, who founded Ger Hasidus, they were actually brothers-in-law. They married sisters, and they were close, really soulmates throughout their lives. Rav Tzadok Akon, who we could have but didn't visit, and another cemetery in Lublin, also came from Misnagdish stock, and many others. The Kotzker actually sought to gather. He didn't want 1,000 Chassidim. He didn't have the ambitions of Rav Meir Shapiro, Yeshiva Chacham Blin. He actually sought no more than 300 good men. And he said he never found them. The 300 never came. All right, we're gonna get off the bus very briefly for a quick talk, and we'll try to. You can bring these quotations with you.
But be watchful because see, we can get
At the top, you can get a boo-boo, guys. Be careful.
so it's
That would hurt. No, be careful. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No.
I'd say what's the Koztker Rebbe? Let's find there's not. Is this two Litvish? No, right here.
This is a kever. Also, don't step on it.
Kever.
That's a kever?
Yeah, there's another kever here. Yeah. We're in a basic forest that's been vandalized, so it'll take you to walk here.
You gotta check it out, sisters.
Yes.
Yeah. Tucking your CC. We're in a basic forest for sure. Yeah.
Can you flash the?
This is a cemetery.
Oh, it's a
This
cemetery.
is a cemetery we're in right now. Basic forest. Yehuda didn't come out, right?
No.
Yehuda didn't come out. Fine.
Yehuda's here.
No, Yehuda Elbaz. Yehuda Gelfand. Yehuda Gelfand is a cemetery.
Yehuda, don't come.
Yehuda Gelfand.
Elbaz.
No, Elbaz is good. He's good.
No, I just want
Elbaz,
he spoke
Elbaz,
about
step back. Let me stand
He was very
here.
excited.
Careful where you're stepping. There are a lot of graves here.
Can people
We
shine
are in an old
flashlights?
graveyard that's been vandalized, and so
Okay.
you want to make sure try as much as you can not to step on a grave. Some of you may have been sleeping briefly. The Koztker Rebbe arose in the world in the early 1800s, and he was a presence that could not be denied. His brilliance was not questioned. That he was one of the leading world Talmidei Chachamim was very clear, but he specifically sought a remote location. Kotzk was just fine. Remember, he was greeted with being pelted with stones, and he liked the spirit here, and he came. And to learn in Kotzk was not like a normal place. He saw it as continue the story. He sought what he thought would be 300 good men, good students, who would come and do nothing but seek emes in the base medrash. And he, like his Rebbe's Rebbe, like the Yid Kadosh, he brokered no fools. To get an invitation, you only came to Kotzk on invitation. To get an invitation was, I guess, in the world that we live in, was like getting a full scholarship to an Ivy League education.
Like Derech.
Something like that. Yeah, very much, because the selection process is extraordinary. So we another neshama from this period. So many misnagdim who become Hasidim. Hasidim spoke to the soul. Hasidus spoke to the soul, and it spoke to the heart. And the Kotzker's way was very much that of the intellect, and that's why so many of the established people who went against Hasidus went for this. Now, we mentioned the Chassam Sofer's father-in-law, that's Rabbi Kiva Eger. He was one of the early outspoken misnagdim who went after Hasidus, feeling that it was another guise of Shabtai Tzvi, Sabbatianism, coming to undermine the Torah and perhaps, chas v'shalom, threaten the existence of Torah and Jews themselves. And he fought it. His son, Rav Shlomo Eger, was an even more outspoken, virulent anti-chassid. The term was misnaged, who moved to Warsaw, where we're heading, and actively pursued Hasidim and tried to get them delivered to the authorities for arrest, feeling that they were going to undermine Torah and the world and Hashem. Now, Rav Shlomo had a son, who's named Rav Leibele Eger, as he's known, who himself was a brilliant person from a brilliant family, a prodigy, totally unlike anybody. He was blonde, blue-eyed, grew up with his father was one of the wealthy men of Warsaw, one of the two wealthy men of Warsaw, and he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth and was destined for greatness. And when he got married, the feeling of anti-Chassidus was such in the world. When Rav Leibele Eger got married, the feeling was that they were all subject, all vulnerable to being indoctrinated into this cult of Chassidus. So much so that the shidduch was made with the other wealthy man, who is even more outspoken anti-Chassid, more anti what's called misnagid in the world. They made condition that the young man was not permitted to step foot in a tish. That's how they got you. The tish was the table on a random Tuesday night or Wednesday night, even, right? They would have the table. There'd be smoking, all l'shem shamayim. There'd be alcohol, all l'shem shamayim. It would go on till all hours in the nights. You wouldn't know from such things, right? And it was done l'shem shamayim. And of course, what could be better? What could be more enticing? And words of Torah were exchanged, and songs were sung, and dancing, all into the nightly hours. And he was forbidden by this Tanai on condition that the marriage would be off, and he signed it. And they moved to Lublin, and Rav Leibele made fast friends with the son of the Choz of Lublin. I don't know if you're keeping track of all the figures in the story, but they're all major players. And he was drawn in, because there was something almost irresistible in these days about Chassidus, and the pure joy and the pure dveikus to Hashem that it represented. And then it came. And this is something, how do you get one of these? The invitation was hand-delivered by a messenger, an invitation to join the Koztker Rebbe and be part of his, what's called the kibbutz. Kibbutz is a gathering. The kibbutz was a gathering of Talmidei Chachamim. And how do you say no to a full scholarship in an Ivy League? So after great soul-searching and hand wrestling, and Rav Leibele was destined for greatness. Everybody had high hopes. His grandfather, his father, Rav Akiva Eger, Rav Shlomo Eger. He accepted the invitation. Rav Leibele came to Kotzk, and it was, I can't tell you, it was an uproar, scandal of epic proportions. He came to Kotzk. The story goes that his father, Rav Shlomo, tore kriya. You know, if your kid goes off the derech, you 7 days in mourning. He tore his garment, tore kriya over his son. And then the story continues. Whether this happened or not is irrelevant. I told you all my stories are true. Some haven't happened yet. So in this event, Rav Leibele asked the Koztker Rebbe if he had a chiyuv al kibud ve'em to be Menachem Avel. I'll translate. If he had an obligation in terms of honoring his father, if he should go and console the mourner, who was in mourning because his son became a chassid. Him. Rav Leibele came to Kotzk. And he came, of course, with a trunk, not a suitcase, of all his finery. He came with his fur coat and his satin shirts, because he came from wealth. Immediately they took him. They took the trunk away, and the fur coat. They took the satin shirts as well. And they brought him to a room, and they said, you have two choices. You can go, and we'll give you everything back. Or you can stay, but the satin shirts can't stay. It has to go. Kotzk is tatters and rags. That's the way we like it here. And searching for truth in the base medrash with all their kishkas. 20 hours a day. Eating when there was food, if there was food. And it was a glorious existence of depth. Perhaps you tasted it if you went over these sayings and mystery. They called the Kotzker an angry man in the best possible sense of the word, if that makes any sense. Meaning he was angry on the covet of Shemaim, and he wanted to produce somebody who had that intellectual honesty, not to tolerate hypocrisies in the world around him, and not to tolerate hypocrisies in himself. He felt certain he was going against the world at large. He was going against the misnagdim, the establishment, and he went against Chassidus. Other Chassidim wanted to put him in cherem, wanted to put him in excommunication because of his outspoken nature. But he was unfazed. He only answered to Hashem. The end of the story is really, I'm going to tell you, I don't have clear parshanut, I don't know what happened, nobody does. It was an Erev Shabbos one day, after about 10 years of the great Kotzk Torah being taught, and all the great wisdom that was spread, when the Kotzker, something happened, went to his home and went into isolation. and didn't come out again. The only person he spoke to was his beloved soulmate, the Chidush Yarim, who Bezras Hashem will visit tomorrow, the founder of the Gera dynasty. And to check for chametz, he went outside once a year. 20 years later, he passed away.
Without like food and stuff.
Somehow. He didn't need that much.
Did he have a wife?
You were the Kotzker. Yeah, he didn't need that much.
So his wife. Like,
No, nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I have to say, as Rabbi Marcus, Rabbi Greenwald have been with me, and many years. Vorenstein for a few years coming here, knows I get thrilled coming here because the inspiration is immense. I don't go a day without quoting him, and these are just some of the quotes. But I can't explain, and it's certainly not correct. A person is supposed to be B'soch Ami Anochi Yoshavis, says the Shunamis in Malachim. We dwell in the people, and we don't isolate. That's not the way of a Jew. So I can't explain. I don't know. I'm sure it was L'Shem Shemaim, whatever it was. It's not normal though, and we're not meant to take a cue from it. But we are. What is that?
Does the Chidush Arim say anything about it?
Nope. Nope. And he took a very different. You'll see his story. He took a very different path in life. No question. From Kotzk, though, was founded some of the great Hasidus. The largest, ultimately, before the Holocaust, was Ger Hasidim. The second largest in Europe were Alexander Hasidim, all students of the Kotzker. You know perhaps about the Radziner Rebbe, because he was the one who had his version of Tchelis. It was a very famous whole story about that. That was also Kotzk.
What color was it?
Varka. It was rejected by the Beis Halevi. Another discussion for another time. And Sakachev, the Sakachever, who the Sakachever Hasidim will be visiting tomorrow in Warsaw. All generations. The accusation against Hasidus was that they did not emphasize Talmud Torah as a centerpiece of Klal Yisrael. And arguably they had a point. In the early generations, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidus himself, said that he became great not through his learning but through his tefillah. And there was an emphasis, and sometimes in their criticism of the establishment, Hasidim sometimes mocked Talmidei Chachamim, not as such per se, because they admitted that Torah was central, but sometimes you could be a Menuval B'Shus Torah, you could be a Talmid Chacham who knows a certain amount but doesn't put it into practice, doesn't act the way. And sometimes the learning itself can be dry. One of my favorite statements on here is everything you do in life has to be L'Shem Shemaim, including the things you do, L'Shem Shemaim, have to be L'Shem Shemaim. Which we can elaborate. What's Pshat? What do you have?
But if you do something that's not habit, even though it's for Hashem.
Yeah. For sure, but it's even people who are doing things. Rabbi Orenstein, what's your nusach? Oh, he's davening? Okay. So he said somebody was asked a real serious bentor, how much do you connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu every day? And he said, I don't have time. I'm going to Shachris, I'm going to learn Torah all morning. Who has time for such things? You could see that well-intentioned people might, in the shuffle of things, actually forget a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. What else you got? What else stood out for you? And do you have any chidushim on the?
I have the paper.
What do you have? We have flashlight, quick.
Enough appears amazing. I want something along the lines of like.
I'd rather revive the living. Yeah, that's really an ambition of this trip. Something that we've said, but I'll say it again because it's relevant by the cuts. You'll never forget being here. I'm telling you. There's a life changer coming. Just standing by the Koztker's kever. The inspiration that he generated in the world is immense. And this idea that most people, this is true, are just dead. They never come to life. Right? And this kind of a trip, this kind of an emotional powerhouse of what we're going to, a roller coaster of emotion, right, has a tendency to shake us up and slap us in the face and say, wake up, Yid, in the best instance. What else?
The one that stood out to me was people are accustomed to look at the heavens and wonder what happens there. It would be better if they look within themselves, see what happens there.
Right.
People are so, they want to, control what they can't control, but they should look into the mirror and see what they really could control.
If you spend time in very serious Torah communities, sometimes you'll notice they're caught up in the halacha, in how do we keep Shabbos better? Because if we keep Shabbos better, we really build a sanctuary for Kadosh Baruch Hu in our midst. But if you spend your time calculating the distance between the planets, you can get lost between the planets. Nice. What else? Moshe, what do you have?
Some wear their amuna like an overcoat. It warms them, but doesn't benefit others. Some light a fire.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's a role for such people in this world too.
Do what?
To warm themselves in their amuna like an overcoat, but it warms them without warming others. Whereas
some light a fire, inviting others to warm themselves as well.
right, there's an opportunity, and perhaps he's articulating something that was magical in Chassidus of spreading the warmth around to others as well, which of course is at the center. Klal Gadol b'Torah is Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. We're not alive for ourselves. We're alive. We should have an impact on the people around us, out in concentric circles. What do you have, Benny?
Just kind of on the last one. You don't always feel the warmth in the scene today, though.
Well,
they feel to themselves.
As the Koztker was critical of this, he saw that sometimes the people, in the great success of the revolution, they became the establishment, and with all of that zeal, what they are doing is they represent some of the great Jews in the world today, seeking a high standard, seeking an idealistic lifestyle without compromise. Satmar comes to mind. Satmar is not a community that they're the largest Chassidus in America. Ger is the largest in the world. Ger is the largest in Eretz Yisrael today. They rebuilt after the Holocaust, but the Satmar don't do a lot of outreach as some of the Chassidus does, because they're doing inreach. They're working on themselves in their connection to Hashem and trying to detach themselves from the temptations of this world.
I have another really, really good one.
Yeah, sure.
This is a fan favorite. I don't expect my Hasidim will have the fortitude not to sin. I expect them not to have the time to sin.
It's so great. And by the way, make a note of it right now. As you plan your Pesach break, as you plan your summer break, and as you plan your life, stay busy. Rule number 1, you can learn Torah 24/7. Awesome, that's the best. You can't do that, get a job, do chesed, paint your parents' house, do something. Then you won't stumble and sin. What do you have, Avishai?
The fast days quote.
Which one?
Someone have it?
There are no fast days on Yom Kippur. There's so much simcha. Who can eat on 9th of Av?
And yet, who has the stomach to eat on Tisha B'Av? These should be natural experiences. It should be something you have to try hard to do. What do you have, Jake?
I keep this in my wallet.
Oh, awesome. Let's hear it.
I didn't even know who it was from. My Chabruta last year, he wrote it down for me, and we were looking at it and he was trying to explain it to me. But if I am I, and you are you, if I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, then I am not I, and you are not you. But if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you. Yeah.
What do you say?
Huh?
What do you make of that?
It's. I remember we had 3 different things.
Somebody want to say?
It's being individual. It's all about individuality and not trying to imitate someone else because you want to be that person. You could,
or alternately, that's one. Go ahead.
Or you could try to look at that person and look at a quality in that person and try to implement into yourself. But ultimately, you're your own person.
And you have to be your own big tzaddik. Alternately, you know how a lot of siblings, subconsciously, we're not even aware this is happening, define their personalities against one another. Oh, he's the goody two-shoes, so I have to be the jokester or the bully or the something else. In contrast, Yosef, he said a nice shot on it yesterday.
I don't
No. You remember what you said?
Hillel has a ken. He says one of the ways of understanding Gilad says, "In ani mili." If I am not me, then what am I? He says.
Yeah. One last one. Anybody?
Can I do it one more?
One more time. Anybody had not had a chance to do one? We really should get out of here.
Kiva.
Kiva, you have something?
Yeah.
Better a Russia, Rebbe. Better a Russia who thinks he's a Russia than a tzaddik who thinks he's a tzaddik.
Because
Gaiva.
And Gaiva, and at least he's connected to reality. So many of us lead a life of complete self-delusion. We go through life without any illusion. Akiva, you have something?
Kiva, better to be a Russia.
What's that?
Russia say better a tzaddik who thinks he's a tzaddik.
Because?
Whatever. A lot of people call themselves tzaddikim, but and they think they're doing the right thing, but in reality they're trying to make sense of something that's completely wrong.
Right.
You have to look out for those people.
Yeah.
Not follow them.
A quest for authenticity.
So the takeaway for us that we should also be questing, probing souls who don't settle for mediocrity. You have to be outstanding and excellent, and not fall into the various hypocrisies and things that people get away with in their lives. The Koztker wouldn't do that, and we should certainly learn from him.
Can I say one more one?
Yes, go.
I don't think any of the other ones would work if this one wasn't a thing. Where's Hashem found wherever he's allowed in? This is true even if a Melech Basar Vadam, when garbage blocks his palace doors, he can't enter. The other ones wouldn't work without this one.
You don't sin if Kadosh Baruch Hu Shivisi Hashem Lenegni is right near you, right? And that Hashem loves us. He loves His people. He loves Am Yisrael. He's right here for us. We block Him out.
So holy, so pure, so precious.
Wrong song. No, the wrong
Let's get
song.
back on the bus. Get back to Warsaw. We'll
Sing a
gather
song,
tomorrow
sing a
by
lick.
Kever Tzadikim. Try not to step in any foreign. I don't think there are any in the way. But wherever you go, wherever you wander in your life, surely you know Hashem is gonna be there. Ask the Rebbe from Kotzk, where is the Ribono Shel Olam to be found? It's all on us. Wherever we let Him in, let Him be there in your morning, let Him be there in your night, let Him take whatever's wrong and make it right. Let Him take you to the Holy Land for all the tribes to share. What He asks you is to let Him be there.